We got some key important updates about an upcoming stablecoin bill here in America. I have all those details and more in this video. We're also going to talk about the BIS opens the first innovation hub in the Americas, which is a big step forward. We also have some information around the crypto market. We're going to, of course, talk about stablecoins, a little bit of stuff about leveling the playing field, and big steps forward into standardizing the digital public infrastructure. Let's go ahead and get into this. So if you're not familiar with the BIS is basically the central bank of central banks. It helps do all of these different tests, helps with some policy, and it's just kind of like the central hub of all of this. And so this says the Bank of International Settlements has appointed Beju Shah as the new head of the Toronto Innovation Center. It says supported by the Bank of Canada, and the center was opened in June 2024. A little too many numbers here, to explore the development of emerging technologies both in Canada and throughout Latin America and in the Caribbean. Since 2022, Shah has led the Nordic Center of the BIS Innovation Hub, where he was in charge of initiatives related to cybersecurity and cyber resilience, financial crime prevention, and the future of money and payments and artificial intelligence. Damn, that guy worked on a lot of stuff. Before the BIS, he worked for the Bank of England for 10 years in various roles. So this is actually really interesting. You know that this person has, come across Ripple's technology by working at all of these places. I'd imagine in multiple of these places that he has seen Ripple's technology. It says the Toronto's Innovation Center initial focus is for projects to explore next generation financial market infrastructure, innovation for regulatory, supervisory, and oversight purposes, and open finance. These are three of the BIS's 6 priority themes for its innovation hub. Others are cybersecurity, green finance, and central bank digital currencies. So the first facility to be sited in the Americas, Toronto, is one of 6 other BIS innovation centers located in Switzerland, the Eurosystem, London, the Nordics, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So great to have that information. Welcome to the Americas. Also, you have from Wrath Economist, it says this graphic below is about XRP in circulation by Ripple partner investor SBI Holdings. In the February report, nice to see escrow down to 40%, burned a portion, but not quite to scale though, right? We know they burned about, what was it? Like the last time I looked, it was about 13 million. Let's just take a look here. So burned, 0.01 billion. XRP circulating supply is 57.76 billion tokens. Of course, you have escrow here at 37 billion. Remember, a billion XRP gets unlocked every single month. Ripple decides what they want to do with that. Usually they lock up, some of that XRP for an extended time period. Again, I do think we are going to see more burns happen as the network is used more on a global scale for, if we start moving trillions of dollars in payments a day, that could start to really supercharge that burn mechanism. Also, guys, when you're taking a look at this, right, I don't see many people talking about how to reduce circulating supply. I know we've had a lot of discussions on this channel. If you haven't seen those videos, basically there's a few simple things we can do. Staking is probably one of the easiest ways to lower circulating supply. Also, if central banks or banks decided to buy and hold XRP for a long period of time, we're talking years, something like what SBI does, we can also take that out of circulating supply. So Trump's crypto task force met on February 24th to discuss the Ripple lawsuit. Here you go. So on February 24th, the crypto task force staff met with Jason Gottlieb, Andrew Hanks, and JW Verrett. Let's see here. It does talk a little bit about alternative proposed approach. The SEC may disagree with Ripple, but it is currently the sole post-motion to dismiss ruling on this subject, and the SEC should write an interpretive release adopting the secondary market reasoning in the Ripple case. Just a little bit more of the same information that we showed already. And then, of course, this document identifies 16 areas where the SEC, through positions taken in litigation, in settled enforcement actions, or in guidance, have interpreted or added glosses to the securities laws specific in crypto digital assets may be revisited and clarified. So hopefully we do get some, more information on what the plan is with the Trump administration. They have been dropping a lot of cases. It does feel like the Ripple case is almost there. Like we are very, very close. All right. And then this is from XRP Drops. This is the moment Bitcoin maxis swap their Bitcoin. Let me play this.
ARK Invest swaps nearly 9 million of its own Bitcoin ETF, for Coinbase. So all that being said, you got to look at the outflows of where ETFs have been going. And of course, we have this stacked version right here of both Bitcoin and ETH. As you can see right there on the chart, ETH holding the line with...
Look at this. This is one day, February 24th, 2025, negative 988 million.
Institutional capital, where what we are seeing in terms of outflows for the last couple of days on Bitcoin, very significant. Of course, the price of Bitcoin has been falling as we talk and record about this today. So this is a factor that everybody's looking at.
Guys, people are getting out of the way. Currently, Bitcoin is sitting at $84,000. It is up about 1.25% in the last hour, but over the last 7 days, it is down 12.45%. Ethereum in the last 7 days is down 16.76%. So this is, I guess, more retail selling Ethereum, which is not good news for the market. Let me go ahead and play this for you. This is about stablecoins. It says Ripple XRP fam, Christopher J. Waller, Federal Reserve Board of Governors, reflections on the maturing stablecoin market. Pay attention. He is speaking on stablecoins first video on February 9th, 2025. Let me play this.
To scoop that, but a lot's been talked about even the past few weeks on stablecoins in the US. I just wanted to get first off, we'll talk internationally, but your view of stablecoins in the domestic economy here.
Yeah, so a stablecoin, the way I kind of think about it is it's a synthetic dollar that you basically take a real dollar, you go to a platform and you get equivalent of a stablecoin, which is its one-for-one value. And then that object trades on some other platform. A simple example I give, which I often use for other things, but if you went to a casino in Vegas, you take $1, you go, they give you a chip.
Yeah.
That chip is worth $1, and at the end of the night, when you're done using it, it goes back, they convert it back into $1. So that's what I mean by a synthetic dollar. It's much like a poker chip at a casino. Now, these things trade on a different platform, typically in the crypto space. That opens up a whole nother world of possible payments and payment rails. And so what I like about the stablecoin is it's another way, it's kind of just like commercial bank money is a synthetic dollar. These things just open up other payment possibilities. And if they can do that in a way that opens competition, broadens the reach of the payment system, drives down cost, makes things faster and cheaper, I'm all for it. I don't have any issues. Now, with stablecoins, there are some issues, right? So it depends on whatever the model is that you're doing it. The typical model is I give you $1, you give me a stable coin, then you go buy short-term liquid treasuries, for example, with the dollar. And then you keep the interest rate spread. Now, the problem is we know those things have run risk attached to them. Somehow the value of the assets backing up the stable coin breaks a buck, and then people run on the thing. So these are things that do come up with stable coins, but they can be dealt with. You know, there are ways to do it. And the critical thing is what we need for stablecoins is regulation, good regulation, and we need it now. So the faster we can do this, the better.
So I guess the follow-up to that on the domestic context, if we get the regulation and people feel confident it is one-to-one with the dollar, that it is on par, is it a digital dollar from your perspective?
Well, I think of it as a synthetic dollar.
A synthetic dollar.
Just like when you go to a bank, if I give the bank a real U.S. currency Federal Reserve note, they give me a claim on my bank account. Well, that's effectively a synthetic dollar. So commercial bank money is a same idea,
right?
That it's a substitute for a real dollar. And that I believe that will always pay off one for one when I go to the bank.
As long as you believe the payoff.
As long as you believe the bank will be solvent, won't run and collapse.
All right, let's talk about the international component of stablecoins. And I think we're going to put an image up here that kind of makes this clear. So this is some research we've done, and you can see it here, and you can also see it in front of you, sir. So what this shows is flows. This is not stock, but this is flows. We took the month of September for an example, just to look at where stablecoins were moving across the world. So we're talking about from a domestic context, how dollars, but dollars in the stablecoin form are proliferating all around the world, and in Europe, and in Asia. Does this create any issues when you talk to your colleagues in other countries? Do they ask about how this is now coming into their economies?
Well, as you can see, that's exactly the point with stablecoins. They're on a platform that's traded globally that anybody can access. That's a very different system than what we have.
Is that a good graph? We can't see anything. It's blue and then a different shade of blue and then something else. Oh man.
For normal payments. And it gives you kind of digital instant access to a US dollar, which, depending on what country you're in, depending how stable your banking system, how stable the government, you may want to hold this digital form of dollars, just like a lot of countries are dollarized now with currency. They just want to hold this safe asset that's very liquid. So this is one of the things I've always argued with stablecoins, is these things are going to broaden the reach of the dollar across the globe.
What Exchange is sponsoring this video. Here is a quick clip about them. Community-driven, decentralized perpetual exchange. As you can see, they have a really dope UI here that has all kinds of information to help you make better decisions out here in the crypto space. They have $100 billion in total trading volume, 71 pairs. Here are the supported chains from them. They also have SEX, centralized exchange competitive fees, 0.05 taker, 0.02 maker, seamless decentralized trading, stay ahead while high-speed trading, enhanced security and self-custody. You can also unlock additional benefits. And if you stake the WHAT token, you can actually earn up to 90% revenue share and more. I am going to leave a link down to the exchange and my referral link. If you want to sign up, if you want to start trading, please use my referral link. I do really appreciate you. And they have a sick roadmap of what is coming. Also, it has been audited by Orderly Network, which is a top auditing company in the crypto space. Let's get back to the show. Right. This is a really good point. So what I wanted to add something here. I didn't want to stop the video too many times, but this is a really good point. So if you live in a country where your currency is fluctuating really severely, either, usually it's not up, right? Usually it's down or sideways or down. Like if you take like the ruble, obviously the ruble over the last few years has had a lot of issues, the yuan, these types of things, right? There's other places where inflation is, 100%. And so these countries, you want to hold something different than the currency of your country, because if you have $100 and for some reason that dips 3 or 4%, you automatically lose, $3 or $4 instantaneously per hundred. So if you have thousands of dollars in the bank, you could be losing hundreds of dollars, even if a few percent move. So what people are trying to do here, the grand scheme of this, is get US stablecoins or euro or pound or whatever currency isn't fluctuating as much into the hands of people all around the world, especially in countries where you have serious fluctuations. And I think that you're going to see Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all of these different banks have their own stablecoins, but they're going to need to be built on an interoperable blockchain that's already interconnected, something like the XRP ledger, right? Something like HBAR. Algorand. These are places that countries and companies are going to go to create some type of stablecoins. You're also going to have stablecoins, especially in the US, from states, right? Listen, a lot of leaders, whether they're in corporations or countries or states, they are looking at how much money Tether is currently making, off of their highly, probably illiquid stablecoin. They're making billions of dollars a year, and that money can go a long way. All that they're doing is creating this digital form of the same currency that we spend every day here in America, and that is going to be the norm.
They're going to make it even more of a reserve currency than it is now. And 90+% of all transactions in this world, these are dollar denominated. They could be in any fiat currency.
Yeah.
You could do it in a pound, you could do it in euro, but everybody wants dollar-denominated stablecoin.
Oh, another thing too, and I'm just, spitballing here, but think about it. If you're a bank and you're sending international payments, you're sending stuff from, let's say, Bank of America to a bank in the UK, right? You need dollars on one side of that trade and you need pounds on the other side of that trade. But if you were on the XRP ledger, you could go from whatever the, Bank of America stablecoin is into XRP, into the British pound, right? Instantaneously. That's the value that the XRP ledger brings with the DEX that is integrated inside of it, right? There's so many cool use cases around this. And I think banks could, go from paying billions of dollars a year in fees to paying a whole lot less. And those costs can be passed over to the customer, right? If you are spending less money to send the same amount of money, your company or yourself will have more money, right? That is the goal here.
So if we can get good regulation, allow these things to go out, this will only strengthen the dollar as a reserve currency.
All right, you got it. So here it is, right? The U.S. Senate Banking Committee is eyeing this the week of March 10th for a markup of Senator Bill Hagerty's stablecoin bill. Stablecoin bill is on the way. RLUSD is ready, and XRP will be paired with RLUSD. And then here is the scoop from Eleanor Terrett. Thank you so much, Eleanor. And then, of course, like the biggest stablecoins currently in America, this is before regulation, is USDC and USDT. But once regulation comes into play with stablecoins, they are going to have certain, audit requirements of that stablecoin. It's probably, if it's going to be used inside of the United States financial system, they were probably going to say this needs to be, by the New York Department of Financial Services. It needs to be audited once a month, et cetera, et cetera. That is what RLUSD does. It gets audited every single month by NYDFS. That is a huge step forward. All right. So we also have this for it says they keep describing a monetary level playing field without saying XRP. Let me play it.
If the U.S. isn't going to run deficits, run up debt to supply the dollars to the world, who will? No one else will. The Chinese won't, and no one else can. And that is correct. And the answer is then you're going to have to settle deficits in something else that is nobody else's debt, nobody else's liability, and that is gold. And I think that's where this is going, and I think it's part of the reason why the U.S. is actually buying gold, is to try to turbocharge this change to this system.
The U.S. is buying gold because every other central bank is also buying gold, right? It's a flight to safety. It has been for thousands of years. When there's issues in the banking system, which we are seeing, they're still seeing stress on the banking system from the C word. Can't really say it, on here. I don't want YouTube to, deflag the video or something like that. But you know what I'm talking about. It's C19, right? That caused so much pressure to be put up on banks. Banks are illiquid right now. I saw a video yesterday where China, the government has been pumping money into banks because money is leaving China at an alarming pace, because everybody is understanding that that economy is, heading for, or is in the process of, it collapsed basically. And so everybody who has money in China is looking to get their yuan into British pounds or US dollars or something else, because they're really worried.
When you hear President Trump say we want to go back to tariffs and cut income taxes, when you hear Marco Rubio in his confirmation hearing say within 10 years we are going to be dependent on China for everything if we do not take aggressive actions to change and start to reshore, change this currency system and reshore. If the U.S. isn't going to run deficit,
I guess we'll see how the tariff stuff goes. So far, not so good, but it could change. We'll see. The Ripple X XRPL feature proposes 2025. XRPL is positioning itself as a leader in the regulated on-chain finance, building on DID, permission, DEX, credentials, and compliance innovations, multi-purpose token, also known as MPT, a new standard for tokenized assets. We're talking about the XRP Ledger lending protocol based on DeFi or institutions, expanding programmability, smart contracts, Q4, XRPL, EVM sidechain. Guys, there's so much happening in 2025 around the XRP Ledger. These are all great, steps forward, leaps forward. And I do think, as more DeFi gets built on the XRP Ledger, more developers will start coming in, start building, and we can really start taking this to the next level. I'm really excited about this. You also have this from 801 XRP. What's up, dude? Just big shout out to you. Ripple XRP fam, standardized digital public infrastructure. This is a quote from Ripple. It says, today we are partnering with the BDACs or BDACs to expand institutional crypto custody in South Korea. BDACs Korea will use Ripple custody to provide secure infrastructure for XRP, RLUSD, and other crypto assets, supporting institutional adoption, XRP Ledger developer growth, and Korea's evolving regulatory landscape. Huge steps. And here is a little bit more about that. We just talked about that, right? So I don't really need to read this to you. I think you guys get the understanding. And just, if you want to find more information on this, guys, just Google search BDAX signed strategic partnership with Ripple. Okay. And looking maybe where we're going, Dark Defender, he's been here a long time. I kind of maybe trust his TA a little bit more than others in the space. So let's see what he has to say. He says, hi all, XRP on a monthly time frame reached the lowest Fibonacci level for a fourth wave, and I assume this corrective wave is completed. The fifth wave on the monthly time frame should start as long as the 188 and 191 levels are preserved. So just taking a look currently at where we are, we're at $2.14. Let's just go ahead, and $2.13 currently. He's saying that if we were to drop below 188, that could be very bad, and we could be heading for a place that nobody wants to go, right? Maybe some though, like, you know, if you are looking at this as, hey, I wanted more opportunity to buy XRP under $2, this could be that opportunity. If you are, you know, if you're ready for, you know, $5 or $10, whatever it is past this, you know, I do want to, you know, express something to you. And I guess some people that watch my content watch like one video randomly, and then, you know, they think this, and this. Listen, I think the reason I do so much XRP content is because I believe that XRP has the best shot for global adoption for banks and central banks. That's where all the money is. Okay, that's why I dedicated my life to better understanding all this. That's why I've dedicated a lot of my time to helping you better understand this, right? And I do think that we are still in a speculation market, which means we're just speculating on these assets. We're not in a utility market. Now, when I post something like XRP to $100 or $1,000 or $10,000, I actually believe one day we're going to see those prices, right? I am not a financial advisor. I am just looking at the current situation of the world, the illiquid status of most of these banks. They are going to need some type of asset to supercharge this new ecosystem. We're talking about the tokenization of over $1 quadrillion coming on chain. Where do you think that's going to end up? It's going to end up on the best technologies. You're probably going to have a handful of them that is really going to matter. And I believe XRP is one of those, right? When we're talking about in the short term, over the next few months, maybe we hit $10, maybe we hit $15, but this is all speculation, right? Yes, the ETFs will help out with some of that. Yes, some more good news will help out with some of that, but we still need the overall health of the crypto market, or all of this good news will fall on deaf ears. So we'll have to see how all of these changes get made. But Dark Defender says, although I say XRP is not affected by any news, the structure looks like it expects, such as the SEC. To me, with or without the SEC, XRP will continue the pattern towards $5 to $8. Okay, so this is what Dark Defender is saying. You know, listen, speculation market, utility market. We're not quite at that utility, but when we get to that utility, guys, I mean, what other asset or what other company, you know, other than Ripple, has as many central bank partnerships, regular bank partnerships, and then custody partnerships through Medico? Some of the biggest banks in the world are working with Ripple and Medico. That is a fact. That is not debatable, right? This is what I am hoping is my future for retirement over the next few years, which is, of course, XRP. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Have a good weekend. It's the weekend. All right, peace.